Warning, this video is not for the faint of heart. If you are a child or someone who is easily scared, you should click off. Trigger warning for this stuff. I'm happy to say that Creepypasta has made a very triumphant return onto YouTube. I think the very best of this genre's revival comes from one creator, Vibing Leaf. Starting off his Creepypasta Re-take series with Red Mist Re-take, which I covered on my channel, they've continued to make more and more incredible reimaginations of these classic Creepypasta stories. And now, we have a reimagining of the Grieving. Now, the Grieving isn't as popular as Red Mist, so for those who are unaware, I'm going to summarize the original story real quick so you can understand what's happening in this retake. The original Creepypasta is about a woman who catches an episode of The Amazing World of Gumball late at night on Adult Swim. In classic Creepypasta fashion, it starts off with a slightly bizarre intro and then immediately cuts to Gumball, miserable in his classroom. It then shows his parents wearing black, sobbing in their living room. The design of the characters looked somewhat off, as if it was from a fan-made Flash animation or something like that. We then hear a door slam. It then cuts to the principal's office with Nicole and Richard being told that the kids haven't been seen at the school that day, which leads to Nicole to start cursing at the principal. He then graphically informs them in what condition their bodies were found, specifically Anais and Darwin. We then see Anais and Darwin's spooky, mauled remains. We then learn that Gumball was found in the school, hung. The episode then ends, cutting to a drab end credits theme. However, static flashes in and out, and between these flashes we see super disturbing footage, most notably, something that looks like the author's brother being shot. At this point, the story really just kind of loses all the realism that it may have once had. The author calls the police, who basically just tell him that he had a scary dream. They check the records of Cartoon Network that night, and they find out that instead of the Grieving, it was actually just an old Looney Tunes rerun. The author then gets visited by a representative of Turner Broadcasting. The author then reaches out to the creator of The Amazing World of Gumball, Ben Bouclet. Ben actually gets back to the author and then explains that the episode was never meant to be seen. He claims that he's been working on Gumball for far longer than any of us know, and that the Grieving was made to make fun of one of his co-workers who'd recently lost a child and would always come into work crying. This is why Nicole and Richard are crying so much. Now, turns out that the parents crying is all that Ben ever made. The rest was not his creation, which then makes him think that the man who killed his co-worker's son somehow found the tape and added all the graphic content to it. Yeah, it's silly as hell. He then ends the message with best wishes from Ben Bouclet and everyone involved with the Grieving. And that's the end of the story. In terms of lost episode creepypastas, it's definitely not the worst out there, but definitely falls into cliches of creepypasta at the time. However, that's besides the point. Now that you're familiar with the Grieving, let's take a look at the Grieving retake. It starts off with a warning, which is very warranted, as you'll soon see. We then see the title screen. Instead of the usual happy music that plays during this title scene, we get a creepy and very dooming sound. The video is segmented into 6 different chapters. First one being the beginning, which starts off with just some normal clips of The Amazing World of Gumball with the sound kind of tuned out. We then, like in the story, see Gumball in the classroom. However, instead of miserable, he's just kind of there, looking there. We hear him say, "I didn't save them." Cool, because now there's actual voice acting that's coming into play here. We learn of a monster, which isn't a part of the original story, but in my opinion, adds quite a lot to this version of it. After fading to black on Gumball, we see the next chapter beginning, this one being freezing cold. There's what looks to be a snowy background with text on the screen. Anais, do you hear me? No. We then see Darwin, only he's missing more than half his limbs, and he has a big split in his head, trembling, looking at a box on the floor. He's then struck in the head by a spike of some sort. The imagery here is disturbing to say the least. We are then presented with what he was looking at in that box. Like in the original story, we see Anais's decapitated head, only this time, it cuts to a monster. This monster is referred to as Corpse. It appears to be some sort of a Wendigo type creature. After we see Corpse, it then cuts back to the classroom. and we see Gumball hung in pretty gratuitous detail. This chapter is referred to as Surprise. After this, it cuts to 3 small headstones, and we see Richard and Nicole crying. This chapter is referred to as Grief. There's no voice acting here, so I'm just gonna do it for this. Nicole! Yes? Did we do great as a family? We did, Richard. We can't do anything about this. But no one is to blame. What is the most important is how we did for them, and I'm sure we did amazing. We did what we could, honey. After this, it fades to black, and we see text at the bottom that says, "Take your time, it's going to be okay." And then that's it. We see Vibing Leaf's name next to the classic Gumball title screen. So now let's take a look back and try to really fully grasp the story of the Grieving retake. To me, the opening scene with Gumball in the school represents the amount of guilt that he has. He feels as though he could have saved his siblings, but he just stood there and watched as they ran away, with him repeating to himself that it's all his fault. This gives us some reason as to why he's hanging in the following scenes. Gumball ends up taking his own life because of all the grief and the guilt that he feels over the death of his siblings. If we look at the Vibing Leaf community tab, we can see a little more information on the corpse creature. Here's where we learn the name and his size next to Gumball for comparison. The text is mildly obscured because it really adds to the mystery of it, and it kind of lets your mind wander. Perhaps Corpse has taken out more than just the Watterson kids. The design of Corpse alone is already really creepy and disturbing, and it's genuinely really cool looking. This muscly mass of writhing meat with the skull and antlers is just such an amazing character design. The gore is done incredibly well in this video. However, in my opinion, that isn't what makes it the most disturbing. The way that Vibing Leaf does their videos is so genius because it's not only the shock value of the original stories, but it shows the reactions of their loved ones, and that's what really makes it feel real, and that's what makes it feel most disturbing. Seeing Nicole and Richard grieving at their graves is genuinely heart-wrenching, but it's also done in such a tasteful and mature way. It's something special, to say the least. Creepypastas really just banked on shock value and gore and blood that ended with the scares being kind of shallow, to say the least. We can assume that Gumball was with his siblings when this creature attacked. Going off the community post, it seems like this creature hunts children. Now, whether or not it holds any deeper meaning, I'm not sure. It could just be a scary monster within the story, or it could tie into the other Vibing Leaf work. There's a chance that the entity that is Corpse could also be in the same vein as the Red Mist. If there's like a Vibing Leaf cinematic universe, like we've got the VLCU, there could be an overall corruptive force that's making all these terrible things happen. If Corpse is indeed a Wendigo, then looking at the lore of Wendigos kind of makes it fit in. The first ever Wendigo was a lost hunter during a cold winter. His intense hunger drove him to cannibalism. After eating another person, he transformed into a beast, roaming forests for more people to eat and kill. It's also considered to be the spirit of winter, but also a symbol of danger and selfishness in a lot of ways. In the amazing world of Gumball, there are often a bunch of different weird and wacky characters that the characters interact with. This could just be a really extreme take on that, potentially. Or like I said earlier, spirit and or entity of the Red Mist could also be a part of it. I'm calling it now, Vibing Leaf is gonna make it big soon, and I'll be able to say I watched them then, I covered their videos way back when they only had like 15,000 subscribers. Now, what's next in the future? The Vibing Leaf retake videos. Well, I noticed something after creating my video on Red Mist retake. At the end of the video, the 3 souls of the children could possibly represent future retake videos. Now, I had mentioned in the last one that the soul in the middle looks like Mickey Mouse, and the second looking like a strange Mickey Mouse sort of character. And I think that's very intentional, because the iconic creepypasta, Mouse.avi, is getting a retake by Vibing Leaf. There's a short trailer out on their channel now, and so that'll be out sometime in the future. So I believe that these 3 souls from Red Mist Retake are representative of Mouse.avi, and then Squidward on the left, but then on the right, I'm not exactly sure. To me, it looks like a boy, which makes me think potentially Ben drowned, or even dead Bart. It could possibly also be Herobrine, because Vibing Leaf has made a video on Herobrine. So this soul could be that of Notch's dead brother, but then again, it could be something completely different. And I'm down for anything, to be honest. In summary, I really hope you all enjoyed this video on the Grieving retake. And I highly, highly recommend you check out Vibing Leaf and watch all their videos, because they're all really, really well done. You don't get the same experience just watching an analysis video, you gotta watch the actual thing to really feel the horror of it. Let me know if there's anything that I missed in this, or if there's any potential hidden messages in this video, or a plot that just flew over my head, but I think I got it pretty good. I've been Raymundo2112, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.